This is my review of My Hero Academia, Chapter 232, Meta Abilities and Quirks. And I just have to ask, what the freak is this dude's quirk? I mean, yeah, he makes his arms grow big, and sure, there's that, but the first time he uses it, his arm's a little bit bigger, and yet it literally pulverized this guy's skull? I mean, I know he's a clone, so he's not as durable as the other ones, but he's still, fairly put together, and yet this guy just flicked his wrist, and he literally fell apart. And then later on, he survives a fall from a freaking skyscraper that collapsed on top of him. There's definitely more to his quirk than we're seeing right now. And that's really saying something considering his quirk makes his arm 20 feet long. Which, again, how is he not falling over with this? There's definitely a weight imbalance going on here. Also learn a little bit more about Re-Destro. His grandmother, the mother of Destro, is considered the mother of Quirks. Now, I see a lot of confusion about this online, but I am 99% certain that doesn't mean her child was the first quirk user. For one thing, it was said in the first episode the first quirk user was glowing, and that's definitely not Destro right here. And for another, that just screws up the timeline so much if quirks have only been around 2 generations. Then that would mean that you're living in a world where your grandparents were born to a world without quirks, more or less. See, that's definitely not the case at all. So instead, she is the one who invented the term quirk. As she said, this is just a quirk of my child, which I really like. They finally give us an explanation for that. It's always felt like a weird name for superpowers. I've always been curious about why they chose that. Now I know it was picked from her. She said it was a quirk of her child. But again, though, this does make for a very interesting timeline, because now we know that children born 2 generations ago, let's say All Might's father, were born into a world where quirk users were despised and hated. And yet, All Might was born into a world where almost everyone has a quirk. He said it was less common back then, but almost everybody had a quirk. And now Deku is living in a world where basically everybody has a quirk. I know they've thrown around that number for, 80% of people have some kind of supernatural ability. I think that number is bullcrap. I really do, because, just think back to Deku's class. It's like 30 students, Deku was the only one without a quirk. We've seen, at least named, only 2 characters in the entire series who were actually quirkless. Yeah, literally only 2 characters in the entire series. And one was in the freaking movie who do not have a quirk of any kind or don't look different or something. So, yeah, I don't think that 80% number is right. Anyway, read Asher's whole speech. He's basically saying, my mother invented the term quirk, and she wanted her child to be free and live a happy life and all this, and they used her word and made legislation that turned us all into slaves, that prevented us from having true freedom. And the only way that'll change is if we're all allowed to use our quirks whenever the hell we want. Based on what I'm seeing so far, he's literally asking for a society in which it's basically a free-for-all in which you can kill and destroy all you want as long as your quirk's more powerful than those around you. Essentially anarchy. I do think this one line he says is really interesting, though. Can a group with nothing but the urge to destroy carry any of the burden of history that we do? And I find it interesting because their group's freaking older than yours. Sorry, Meta Liberation Army, I'm not sure if anybody's told you this, but their founder was born in a world before you, before your father, before your mother, before the term quirk ever existed. All for One existed before that. He has more history. He has shaped this world, likely in ways that this guy can't even begin to imagine. So yes, they do have more of a history than you do. I'm sorry. And I just love it after he gives this whole long speech. And Shigaraki shows up and says, hey, you're the guy from the commercial. And Re-Destro's like, I suppose you just missed that whole long speech I gave you. That was nice. I just thought that was a good twist, He gave this whole thing about how they're fighting for the future, they're fighting for the past, they're fighting for history, they're fighting for a cause, and Shigaraki just blew it all away and basically erased his speech from existence. Okay, let's talk about Shigaraki here, because I just loved him in this chapter. I think with everything else going on, with the debate about quirks and all this, we kind of forget this man destroyed a skyscraper. It wasn't just, he used his quirk to weaken the foundation so it fell over. He literally turned an entire 300-foot tall skyscraper into dust. his effect shot up to the entire tippy top of this building and reduced it to dust. This just shows how ridiculously powerful he's gotten since the start of the series. I mean, we haven't really seen him go all out with his quirk before, but I mean, his quirk basically, crumbled knives or slowly destroyed skin. Now it's literally demolishing buildings. Literally demolishing them. That's, just really shows how far he's come, and I just love it. He destroyed this building knowing that all of his allies and Jiren were in it. Well, I guess knowing that Jiren was in it. The rest of his allies were just clones, so not a big deal, though. I do love the line his clone says, "You dare replicate your leader and assume the clone will die?" Clearly, Twice thinks of him as a fairly arrogant human being, which, yeah, that's accurate. Okay, I'm just realizing this is actually a very weird scene if you think about it. Okay, this is bizarre. I'm actually not sure how to interpret this. The clone of Shigaraki comments on her as being the mother of Quirks. And Re-Destro says, "Oh, I thought you didn't get any formal education, so you wouldn't have known that." Does he actually know that? Does Shigaraki know who the mother of Quirks is? Or does Twice know it? And would Twice assume that Shigaraki would know it? I mean, just think about this for a sec. We saw before that the one clone he made was surprised that Twice had overcome his mental block, and that surprised the other clone because Twice already told him, but the clone who made him didn't know that. So clearly these clones are the result of his own beliefs, his own free will. Clearly these clones are the result of his own interpretation of these people. So if that is the case, then So if that is the case, then Twice has to know about the mother of all Quirks. He went to school, so I'm guessing it's something, he would have been taught there. But Shigaraki might not know that, and yet the clone of Shigaraki would know that because Twice would have assumed that he knew that. That's really bizarre. That is really bizarre. Okay, that's screwing with my head a lot. I'm also wondering if this can be used to his advantage. Let's say he would be hypnotized into believing that All Might was still alive, healthy, and all that, and that he was a villain, that he was the greatest villain ever lived. Could he then make an evil clone of All Might? And we're thinking, well, then wouldn't he just make clones of All For One? But that would be very hard. I mean, literally, All For One has like 100 quirks, and he's got a 300-year history, and so much more that's Twice just has no information on, so making a clone of him would be very difficult. But he knows All Might, and if the information in his mind would be just mildly twisted or changed to make him think, oh, All Might is a villain, could he make evil clones of All Might? Because that'd be freaking awesome. I'd love to see that. Though I think it's fairly likely the clones might end up destroying themselves with their own massive power. So yeah, I do hope we see more of that down the road. Though he did say something interesting. He also said that he can make clones of himself faster than other people because he knows himself better than others. So he makes clones of himself to make clones of the other League of Villains, which I like that. And of course, then they get the same old argument they had before. So you're not the real one? Of course I'm the real one. No, I'm the real one. No, I'm the real one. And then he finally decides, shut up. It doesn't matter who's who. Not when our hearts are in it and our lives are on the line. Which, well said. I think he's finally mostly overcome the mental block of his clones thinking they're the real one. Just because they all want to fight, They're all risking their lives, whether or not they're the original, whether or not they're the clone. I think the original can be told because he has broken arms and legs. But that's going to be an issue down the road, I'm sure. We'll see a very interesting part. As the one clone of him is crumbling into putty, essentially, he's able to make another clone. So unless you destroy him entirely, he just comes back. He's like an infection or mold. He can regrow from the tiniest part of himself and just make more. God, I just love this interaction between him and Jiren, though. Your fingers, they really chop them off. Damn it, your right hand, too. That's the hand you smoke cigs with. Twice just really cares for Jiren, and I just really hope he's okay. I mean, Jiren here, he's like, I'm so sorry, guys. I ended up giving intel. I'm so sorry. And it just enrages Twice. He's like, don't apologize, you did nothing wrong! Which, I really want Jiren to survive this. I want him to survive this. And in the final chapter, I want there to be a flash of him retired, living in a private island somewhere, with a freaking robotic hand, smoking a cig, and reading about the League of Villains in newspapers saying, oh, those crazy kids, they really did something else, didn't they? That's how I want his story to end. Retirement, nice life. I know he's an evil broker for criminals, but I just like him so much. I want him to go on and live a good life. So, yeah, be sure to let me know what you think in the comments section down below. What is Re-Destro's real quirk? And will Shigaraki be able to take him out on his own? I kind of think he will, and then, all the other members will show up to defend him, and then Giganto's going to show up and just kill all of them. I want a death count at the end of this. I want a news report to say, oh, the town of blah 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 was utterly wiped out by League of Villains. Casualties are believed to be in the thousands. I want a death count after all this. Hell, maybe they won't even notice. Maybe Twice will just make copies of all the people they killed, and they'll go on living like nothing happened. That'd be just utterly bizarre, but funny. So, yeah, be sure to like, subscribe, and until next time, peace.